Bernard Montgomery was the hero of El Alamein. The Second Battle of El Alamein in November 1942 was a turning point in the Second World War. The Allied victory eliminated the German threat to Egypt, the Suez Canal, and the oil fields in the Middle East and Persia. The victory could never have happened without the creative ingenuity of an unknown war hero, Colonel Dudley Clarke, photographed here by a Spanish agent after his arrest in women's clothing in Madrid in 1941. More about that at the end of this video. General Wavell, the British commander in North Africa, added Dudley Clarke to his staff in Cairo, Egypt, in 1940. Clarke was given the task of misleading the Germans and Italians in every possible way he could think of. From a small office in the basement of a brothel in Cairo, Clarke was responsible for some of the most ingenious deceptions in North Africa. Not only that, Clarke was at the foundation of the British Commandos. He came up with the name of the US Rangers and created the SAS. The first Special Air Service was a fictional unit created by Clarke because he knew that the Italians in North Africa suspected that there were British airborne soldiers in Africa. Those soldiers were not there, but Clarke, with his fictional SAS, led the Italians to believe that they were. One day, Clarke was approached by a soldier named David Sterling, who wanted to start a unit with commando paratroopers for operations behind enemy lines. David Sterling sought to get Dudley Clarke's seal of approval for the idea. Clarke thought it was a great idea, but insisted that Sterling take the name of his fictional unit and use it for the real one. That's how the SAS was born. Clarke's most successful action in Africa was Operation Bertram, which preceded the Battle of El Alamein. Montgomery planned to attack in the north with the 8th Army, so Clarke was called in to trick the Germans into believing that the English would attack from the south. Clarke pulled out everything he could think of. Real tanks were disguised as transport trucks in the north, using light sunshield canopies. The disguise made it almost impossible to discover that these innocent-looking trucks were in fact British tanks. Tanks' tracks in the sand were hidden thanks to this simple device on the back of the tanks. Meanwhile, hundreds of dummy tanks, made with fabric and wood, appeared in the southern part of the front. False intelligence was passed to the Germans through double agents, and radio traffic from non-existent units in fake army camps created the illusion that most British troops were in the south. A dummy water pipeline from north to south was constructed at an apparent rate of 5 miles a day. It helped to create the illusion that it would take weeks before the Allies would attack. The British magician Jasper Maskelyne said after the war that he had devised most of the deceptions in North Africa. That claim is not taken seriously by most historians. The role of the magician was marginal. His main contribution was to perform for the troops. Anyway, the deception worked. The Germans strengthened their front on the south side at the expense of troops on the north side of the front. Montgomery attacked in the north and became the hero of El Alamein. The success of this deception was just one of many deception successes that Clarke was able to credit. Clarke was also involved in Operation Mincemeat to disguise the 1943 Allied invasion of Sicily. He also played a role in Operation Fortitude, which had to deceive the Germans into believing that the D-Day landings would take place at Calais. In Fortitude, General George Patton was given command of the non-existent 1st U.S. Army Group, with 44 fictional divisions. But in October 1941, Dudley Clarke was almost locked up in a Spanish prison for the rest of the war. Spain was neutral in the war, and although the country was pro-German, Spain was frequently used for secret meetings by various English intelligence services. On October 12, 1941, Clarke was arrested by Madrid police wearing women's clothing. After 5 days of interrogation, the Spanish police concluded that Clarke was a homosexual and released him. It has always remained a mystery why Clarke was in Spain and why he walked around in women's clothes. Clarke told Spanish police it was a prank to fool a friend, but the excuse did not hold water when it turned out that Clarke was also wearing matching women's underwear.